Greetings and welcome to the Unity 3.5 tutorial series. In this one we're going to cover navigation in the scene editor and basic control of game objects. Now by default when you start up a new scene it is going to be in landscape mode. This is indicated by the depressed little button here that I suppose is supposed to look like a mountain, but it just looks like a graph to me. Click on that and you will disable landscape mode and we will get this grid here running through the middle of the world. You can also see that we have in the upper right hand corner here this little gizmo thing. This little gizmo here tells us what our current editor camera's orientation is. It is very, very useful to be able to see exactly how are you looking through the world. Now, to move in this world, you can press and hold the right mouse button and move the mouse, and this will cause you to look around. Notice as I look around, this little widget here changes. One thing you have to be careful of, do not invert your camera. Unity will quite happily let you do this, will happily let you work, and it will confuse the heck out of you when things are not moving like you expect, or when things are looking completely inverted when you go to actually play the game. This green Y should always point up. You can also click on these little tabs here to see different orthographic views. So now I'm looking at the bottom view, the right, front, left, back, and top views. Now, if you try to look while you're in these orthographic views, it will break you into what is called isographic mode. If you're unfamiliar with what that might mean, think Diablo, or I believe Farmville also uses an isographic viewpoint, sort of a, looking down at an angle at the world. You've got to watch out for getting into isographic view because that will mess with the ability to actually move the camera. To get out of isographic view or any of the orthographic views, click on the center square and it will take you back to perspective mode. To move the camera, and again, make sure you are in perspective mode, you press and hold the right mouse button, and then you can use the WASD, or W-A-S-D keys to move. W is forward, S is back, A is left, D is right. You can also use E for up and Q for down. Make sure you always have the right mouse button down while you are doing this. Now, one trick with this is the longer you hold down the keys, the faster you will go. So when I initially start holding down W, I'm going at a fairly sedate pace, but then you can see here I'm speeding up, speeding up, speeding up, speeding up, and now I'm like my movement's almost completely out of control. So the longer you hold down a key, the faster you will move. Now, I have completely lost my camera. What do I do? Two ways of framing objects. One is to double-click the object in hierarchy, and that will frame that particular object in the editor window. The other way is with the object selected in hierarchy, you can press the F key for frame, and that will also frame that selected object in your window. Now, every game object has a transform component. The transform component defines where in space is this object, what is its rotation, or how is it angled in the space, and what is its scale? Should it be larger or smaller than its default values? Now, the camera, the scale does not mean anything to the camera, so to play around with these values, let's create a game object. I'm going to create a cube. So I'm going in my hierarchy, I'm going to say create and cube. Now you can left click, release, move the mouse over to cube and click, or you can do it the way I did, it's click, hold, drag. Either way, be careful, this wind zone, Unity likes to create wind zones, I don't know why, so if you accidentally create a wind zone, it's no big deal. Select the object in your hierarchy and then press the delete key, assuming that you haven't entered rename mode. So deleting one of these extra cubes, highlight, click, delete, and it's gone. Now, Unity's got some sort of internal logic for determining where it places newly created game objects. sometimes this makes sense, and sometimes you're looking at Unity and asking why. In this particular case, it does make sense. I had framed my viewpoint on the camera, so it's going to create additional objects on the camera. But I want to move this to 0, 0, 0, this origin of the world, so that way we can actually see it when we go to do the game preview. So on my transform, I'm going to enter in 0 for Y and 0 for Z. And notice it moves the game object now to 0, 0. I'm going to adjust my editor view here. Okay. Now, by default, you should have these arrows here. If you do not have these pointy arrows, you can come up here and click on this four-way arrow here, which says Move the Selected Objects. You can also use the W key to select that as well. These arrows allow you to move the object. If I click on the blue arrow, it'll only move it in the Z plane. If I click on the red arrow, it'll only move it across X. And if I click on the green arrow, it'll only move it across Y. Zoom in on here a little bit. You can see that there's like these planes here in the center. Clicking on the green one allows me to move it on the XZ, the blue one, the XY, and the red one, the ZY. I can also put my mouse cursor over the letters on the transform component and get these tiny little arrows, left click and drag to move it along those axes. Or, as we saw originally, I can type values in directly. Rotation works mostly the same way. I can press the E key or click on the two arrows chasing each other, and now my widget here changes to lines. I can use the red line to rotate it around X, the blue line to rotate it around Z, and the green line to rotate it around Y. And once again, I can put my mouse cursor over these values here and rotate them, which tends to be a very small, fine rotation. You can get very detailed rotation doing this way. And, of course, manually type in values. Scale can be either the R key, or you can click on the little box with arrows going out from it. This will change the size. Clicking on the center box will uniformly scale the object. You can see my scale values are all the same. Or I can click on a specific axis to scale just in that axis. So if I wanted a floor plate, I could scale that way down, scale this up, and I've got like a big floor-like area. Or I can type in values manually. Again, keep in mind that Unity uses meters as sort of its default measurement. So a 1 by 1 by 1 cube, in this particular case, is a 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter cube. And that is the basics behind navigating in the scene view and controlling and manipulating objects. Of course, there's a lot more detail to this. There's also parenting objects to each other and adding on additional components, but that will be covered in different videos.